Who, me?
Girl.
Lily, you win the day. You're the first comment. Quit being weird. Okay, who is ha 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 again? So I don't have to say it. No. Wow. First question right off the bat. Camp. Get out of here. Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt. It's significant because first Middle Eastern country to officially recognize Israel. Okay, that's a big deal. Okay. Hey, Leah. Hope you're feeling better. Okay, next comment or next question. Sorry, there's a lag apparently. Ayatollah Khomeini was the guy that led the revolution in Iran. He was in exile, came back, and he helped lead the revolution. Okay, bummer about that. Yeah, somebody answered the question about third way. I feel like my class, we've talked about that a lot. Oh, somebody go real quick. That's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah, the third way is between the traditional Democrats with being really liberal and the conservatives. And so Clinton argued a third way. And what does the third way mean? It's that we don't have to do the big government programs like New Deal and Great Society. So third way is balanced budget, reform welfare. Welfare becomes workfare, raise taxes on the rich, cut taxes on the poor, or give them tax credits at least. So those are all kind of third way programs. That's why they call it the third way. Camera looks fuzzy. Because of the oil shocks, it's the OPEC countries embargoing oil against us because they're trying to punish us for supporting Israel. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little wars between Israel. To the follow-up question, a lot of little wars. Well, little from our end between Israel and the other countries. In fact, if any of you guys have been paying attention, President Trump said Israel, who won the Golan Heights during the 6-Day War, should just keep it. Okay, Kelly's question: the difference between the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. Assume you're talking about W. Bush, and so okay, you're gonna have to leave. You have to keep on doing that. So the Afghan War, it was because Osama bin Laden after 9/11. So we traced it back to Osama bin Laden. He was hiding in Afghanistan. Well, not really hiding. The government there was protecting him. So we said you can turn over Osama bin Laden, or we can invade. And the Taliban government that's there, still there now. Well, actually, they're not the government, but the Taliban wouldn't turn him over, so we invaded. Iraq War is different because we said Iraq was trying to develop weapons of mass destruction, and people tied it in. And people at that time, kind of some people I think probably purposely conflated the two. Said, "Oh, Iraq was partly responsible for 9/11" when they never were. Then it became, well, they're trying to develop nuclear weapons, and we can't let them have that, so we invaded. So those are two different things. And we're mostly out of the Iraq War. Almost out of the Afghanistan war. So hopefully that helps. Grace's question: why do we support Israel? We support Israel because they are a friend in the Middle East. Remember, in particular during the Cold War, you need friends. Kirsten's question: Sagebrush Rebellion. It's just kind of I think some of the origins. It's one of the groups that support Reagan. So remember, the Sagebrush folks it's a mixture of really two groups. One is people out west that don't like to pay the government for grazing their cattle on the land because they think the government owns too much land, and another group that thinks the government shouldn't tell them how much to build, which is kind of weird because one is about grazing, one is about like development. But that's what they say. Politics is strange bedfellows. Bishrab's question: the recession wasn't. I don't think it was because of the Gulf War. No, he raised taxes. Well, I don't know. He raised taxes, I think, before because he had to raise the debt was going up, so that's why he raised taxes. Abdul's question: we bombed Bosnia because they were trying to exterminate the Muslims. There's essentially a civil war going on in Bosnia, so we stopped them. So Kosovo is part of that. Leah's question: well, you can't just invade. Well, because Osama bin Laden, I mean, he killed some Americans, but not enough. 2,000 Americans died in 9/11. In the Cole attacks, embassy attacks, it's probably a dozen, maybe 2 dozen. So not enough. You can't just go around invading because you want to. Oh, people in my class, we never talked about the Kyoto Protocol, so make sure you know that. Okay, Christopher's question: who are the neoconservatives? The neoconservatives, so it's like the new conservatives. They're the people that believe in like Western tradition. By Western tradition, like we should be reading Shakespeare instead of like Confucius. Believed in the Western tradition, believed in democracy, hated communism. And they're essentially the people that like we need a story to kind of drive us, right? So instead of Frederick Jackson Turner's the frontier thesis, we need a story. So during the Cold War, luckily we had the communists, and they became the bad guy that we kind of rallied around. So parents could say, "Eat your green beans because the communists are coming." It's kind of scary. Sure, I can, Leah. The Kyoto Protocol, that was the attempt to limit global warming, and we didn't sign it. And just like I think just about every like attempt to limit global warming, U.S. doesn't sign is because it's going to hurt business. You make businesses scale back or put on expensive equipment. The argument is always it's going to hurt business, and we love the environment, but we love our jobs even more. Kirsten, is Grenada a term? I don't recall him in Brinkley, although I do know what it is. Okay, in the meanwhile, somebody answer Vish's question about the sagebrush, unless you didn't like mine. Okay, Rishab, I don't know if you're kidding about pop cons. I don't recall anything about pop cons, unless you mean pop cans. That'd be Coca-Cola and Pepsi then. Mm-hmm. That was pretty funny, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Kirsten, that doesn't make sense. It was In and Out, like the burger. Chris's question about Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square was one of the places that the democracy did not spread to. So, again, Soviet Union's kind of falling apart. Eastern Europe is reverting back to democracy. China, they tried that in Tiananmen Square in 1989. That failed. That's the whole Tank Man picture. And that's why you can't really Google Tiananmen Square. Well, you can't Google anything in China, but if you try to look up Tiananmen Square, you'll come up with nothing because it doesn't exist in China. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. If you mentioned Tiananmen Square and the Chinese gaming servers, they just like taking from the game. Oh, did they? Oh, that's funny. Okay. See, 1994 midterm. That's when the Republicans took control during Clinton's, and they had their contract with America. And so they promised. I can't even remember what the contract says, but the contract with America, they took control of. Maybe they took control of the House. Democrats kept the Senate. Okay, like I said, I don't remember popcons. Okay. I don't. So okay, so I don't know. You'll have to ask. I'll have to ask Ignati. Tom B's question about the Obama stimulus package. Again, when Obama gets elected in 2008, there is a massive recession going on. People said it was the worst one since the Great Depression, to give you an idea. So all those other recessions, like during Reagan and Bush, nothing compared to this. And so there's real fear that we're going to spiral down into another Great Depression. Obama asked for 1.2 trillion. He gets $800 billion to spend on jobs and help create jobs, kind of like New Deal-ish. Okay. Thank you about the popular conservatives. I don't ever recall that term. So the Serbian government was bombing again. They're essentially committing genocide. They're trying to wipe out the Muslims. And NATO intervened and they bombed them in Kosovo, and they got them to hold a ceasefire and kind of save the day. Dayglow Vibes, nice name. Ford didn't really do anything great in foreign policy. He was there when South Vietnam finally fell to North Vietnam, when the Congress to give more money, but Congress said no. Why did NATO get involved into the Civil War? Because it's in Europe. So if it's in your backyard, you can't just let it happen. Yeah, Abdul, good answer with about Grenada, but actually, I don't think the Soviets didn't invade Grenada. I think there might have been communist government that took over. It wasn't the Soviets though, and this was after the Beirut barracks bombing, so we had to kind of get our groove back. So we went in and kicked the tar out of this tiny country. We felt better about it. Tiffany's question about Guantanamo Bay, exactly. So Obama promised to close it, but a couple problems. One, when you close it, there's a question: what do you do with the people there? And so, the Republicans wouldn't let him move prisoners onto shore because they were afraid it would invite terrorist attacks. Hard to get other countries to take their people back after we said they're crazy radical terrorists. But we did move some, but he wasn't able to totally close it because of those things. Didn't even want to put them in America for a trial. So like these people were so dangerous. Okay. Day Gold Labs, I don't know what you're talking about because I think the message was erased. Oh. I wouldn't say it's Clinton foreign policy, but it was around with Clinton. So one of Clinton's thing, it's multinational, so I guess you could say that. So work with other groups. Rashab, no, they're subject to there anyways, whether they're in Guantanamo or in Florida or something like that. They just didn't want them on the U.S. mainland. Catherine's question about a relationship with Gorbachev. Originally, it was rocky, so Reagan liked to talk tough to the Soviets, the whole evil empire thing. Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall. It definitely got better, though. Okay, and then Brendan's follow-up question: Glasnost and Perestroika. Part of it is Gorbachev wants to reform the Soviet Union. He knows that they've got problems. Glasnost is political openness. Perestroika is economic reform. Just know that that's what he did. Okay, Tanafa, you changed your name. It was something else before. Sindhu, identifying the chapter. Sunbelt tend to be more conservative folks as they moved out. What caused the Sagebrush Rebellion? I don't know if it's anything caused it. Just these folks. It's the beginning of a strain of anti-government. Okay, so the government's the enemy. So if you guys remember Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, you go close the door, dude, real quick. The Oklahoma City bomber, and turn on that light over there. No, that one. They're anti-government. There was a time in the late '90s where we used to have we had militia, like even in Michigan. So like these overweight middle-aged men would go train in the forest in upper Michigan for when the government tries to take over, even though they're in charge because they're the government. Why didn't Carter presidents don't have control over the interest rates? Federal Reserve Board does. And you don't want to decrease interest rates. You want to increase interest rates to cut off the money supply, tighten the money supply, and that would be painful. Okay, Ansh, no room for personal hellos. Grace, domestic policies during Ford. No, he pardoned Nixon, obviously, right? And he tried to whip inflation now, right, class? And that gives rise to the DJ Khaled song, "Win, Win, Win." It's much funnier when we say that in class. You're welcome, Brendan. No, inflation actually the inflation bubble got popped with Reagan. First 2 years of Reagan, it's recession still, and then the inflation bubble popped, and after 1982, the economy did much better. Kelly's question, I think that the rich got more tax cuts. I think it was for everybody, but the rich definitely benefited the most. Tiffany's question, Clinton's third way. Can somebody, and we answer that, can somebody take a stab at it and I'll add to it as you type in? Serious question. Ross Perot was the billionaire that ran in the 1992 election. Probably cost President Bush the re-election. That and also the recession going on. Ansh's question, Reagan didn't end inflation. The Federal Reserve under Paul Volcker did. Okay, they're the only ones that can raise interest rates. Okay, Angie's question over the Iran-Contra scandal. So the Contras were the anti-communist rebels in Nicaragua. We used to give them money, but then they did some terrible things, and Congress cut off money to the Contras. So Reagan and his administration still wanted to support the Contras, and so when you need money, class, what do? You usually hold a bake sale, but in this case, they sold weapons, and so they sold weapons to Iran. And so with the money they got from the weapon sales to Iran, they gave that to the Contras, which was illegal because Congress had explicitly cut off funds. And so it was a big to-do. Reagan never got in trouble, said he didn't know about it, so it's not his fault. He wasn't impeached for it, but certainly a stain on the Reagan legacy. Okay. And actually, just to add to Lily's comment about the third way, Clinton wasn't being super liberal. He looked for a way out. So it doesn't have to be liberal or conservative. He looks for a third. That's why it's called the third way. So balanced budget, raise taxes on the rich, tax credits for the poor, reform welfare. You don't get rid of it. Allow gays in the military without being open. Reform affirmative action without getting rid of it. So that's all kind of third way. Okay, somebody answer Cindy's question about Bosnia and Kosovo, please. Yes, and we haven't really talked about this, although we should have more. Globalization does limit social mobility with a two-tier econ. So here's the big problem. If you made stuff for a living, and your job moved overseas, where are you going to go? The answer is no place, because you have no really other options. So the options for unskilled work and manufactured work is pretty low, and even lower because manufacturing is disappearing from this country. So that's where it makes it worse. Cindy's question, what is Clinton's foreign policy? I don't know if his foreign policy really had a name. He tried to multilateralism, maybe. He worked with other countries, didn't tend to do stuff by our own. And she should know who Ross Perot is. It's funny, every time I read his name, I think Ross Parrott. Rockstar's question. Somalia is one of the places of human rights, and so we try to help the warlords, and we got one of our helicopters shot down. They made a movie about it, Black Hawk Down. Took our dead pilot and dragged him through the streets, and so it was kind of an embarrassment for America. Okay, Abdul's question, significance of the Sagebrush Rebellion. Can somebody answer that? We've talked about that. The second part of your question, no, it didn't really, not exactly weaken control in the West. But the debate, if you remember, this goes back all the way probably to Teddy Roosevelt. Should businesses have the opportunity to like drill in the West and look for resources in the West, or should we preserve it and keep it natural? So that's the big debate. Okay, can somebody explain glasnost and perestroika? I think we've already talked about that one. Tiffany's question. No, other way around, Tiffany. He kind of pissed off the left, including unions, and the right hated him because he stole their idea. So like a balanced budget was a Republican idea. So he kind of stole that. So no, he actually angered both of them, but he really appeased to the moderates in the group. And so part of the right wing is like, if you can't criticize him because of his policies, you can criticize him for his personal life. And not saying it's right, but the whole Monica Lewinsky thing and other scandals that he had. Okay, Tanapa's question. H.W. Bush said there was no new tax, but I read somewhere that there was a slight, yes, and to H.W. Bush's credit, he raised taxes because the debt was going up. So even though he promised no new taxes, when he saw what was happening, he probably did the right thing, which is one of the probably very few guys that do that. So you're right about that. Okay, somebody answer Grace's question about glasnost and perestroika. Oh, that took a big jump. Hold on. Tanapa's question, you should know what apartheid is. So apartheid is in South Africa. The white minority ran the government, owned land, and that was overturned in the 80s. Grace's question, who is Timothy McVeigh? Timothy McVeigh is one of the crazy anti-government folks. Thought the government's trying to take over people's lives and take their guns. So he's the one with the truck bomb at the Oklahoma City Federal Building. Killed, I forget how many, 100 and something people, including 44 children. So the memorial there's like 44 like children-sized chairs. It's really sad. Okay, Tanapa, that's not a full thought for this time period. Oh, good job, Kelly. He's a domestic terrorist. He bombed Oklahoma City Federal Building, not the entire city, just for clarification. Who opposed the New World Order? Good question. So it's the conservatives, the anti-government folks. And so the New World Order, this in my class, if you guys remember the joke about the United Nations and the devil statue on the 50th floor and the black helicopters flying around, that's part of it. And so they didn't like the New World Order because you don't have a voice in the New World Order, right? It's governments dictating what you can and cannot do, including if it's a New World Order government, one that you didn't vote for. So if you remember, just to make the connection, this was kind of back like League of Nations, right? People were worried that U.S. is going to get involved in stuff that's none of our business. And the same idea here, we're going to be subject to rule by a government we didn't vote for. Nah, Tanapa, I don't know if I would say Bush was uninterested in domestic issues. I might be going too far. Yeah, good answer, Sindhu. And just to tie that in, and Gorbachev knew what he was doing. So you needed to reform the Soviet Union. They were falling behind, and so historians have analogized it to like an apple rotting from the inside. It looks fine on the outside, but really from the inside, it's falling apart. Good answer, Kelly. Yes, we bombed them to stop the ethnic cleansing. It's ethnic cleansing of Muslims. Okay, what's the significance? Well, one, we step in, and NATO steps in, and we stop the ethnic cleansing. I guess some people have asked like Clinton's foreign policy. I guess you could say it's like kind of human rights oriented when you think about like Kosovo, when you think about Somalia. Like we're trying to do what's right because we're the only superpower. So biggest guy on the block, you should do something. Yes, Abdul. Glasnost political. I remember Glasnost is political freedom. Perestroika is economic openness. So one's political, one's economic. Okay, Rockstar's question about Somalia. See if somebody can take that. We talked about that already. If you can't, I can tackle it again. Yeah, although we're part of NATO, people. So, I mean, it's not entirely that we didn't want to get involved. Joel, the abortion debate, you should know, obviously pro-life, pro-choice, where that has gone since then. So, again, they've been trying to they being pro-life has been trying to get rid of Roe versus Wade. It's difficult. So if you can't get rid of Roe versus Wade, they've instituted mandatory waiting periods, mandatory counseling, parental consent, spousal consent. If any of you guys notice, I think in Georgia, they just passed a heartbeat bill. So they're going to ban abortion after a heartbeat is detected, which is really difficult because I think that's like a week 6. Okay, and so a lot of women don't even know they're pregnant at that point. So the abortion debate's still alive and kicking. No pun intended. That's terrible, I know. No, Republicans didn't like Clinton because he stole their ideas. Okay, that's why he stole their ideas, and it becomes popular as a result of it. So you would think they'd be happy with, hey, what are you doing? They want. I mean, ultimately, if you're a politician, you want to get elected. You got to hold office. So it's not so much about your idea. Well, for some of them, they'd say it is, but you got to get elected. Shreya's question about the stimulus plan. When Obama got elected, we were in a deep recession, the worst one since the Great Depression, and people were worried that we're actually going to go to the Great Depression again. Asked for a stimulus plan, $800 billion to create jobs. You think like kind of New Deal, just create road jobs, construction jobs. Helps bring us out, kind of soften the blow of the recession. Sindhu, I don't know, did George W. Bush or George W. Bush? No, it didn't really cause inflation. Yeah, that's fine. It's one of the places where democratic reform failed. Do you mean opposite detente? Like the Soviets took that? I guess that would work. Okay, stimulus plan. It's like 5th time we've got that. Somebody answer that, please. Thank you, Brendan. I'll be here all day, or actually all night. Navleen's question: the two-tiered economy, because what's happened, manufacturing was kind of, so you have like kind of unskilled jobs like flipping burgers at McDonald's, mowing lawns, stuff like that. You have manufacturing jobs like working at the big 3, which provided a good middle class living. So you could work at the big 3 and have a cottage and have retirement and health insurance, and that was a good job. And then you have professional jobs, the white collar jobs. With manufacturing going away, now you have a two-tiered economy. Essentially, you have and have-nots. You're flipping burgers and making minimum wage. You're just barely making it, living day by day, quite literally. If you are white collar, you got more money. You go on vacation. You live in a good life. Tanapa, so why did Americans oppose globalization? It's because of that. Union workers in particular and people in manufacturing, because those jobs disappear with globalization. If they can make it cheaper somewhere else, they will. It helps stimulate the economy. I mean, I can't remember. I don't know which tax cut you're talking about. One of the tax cuts came after. Well, no, the tax cut after you got elected. It's helped stimulate the economy. I don't think it was really bad in terms of inflation. Yep, good job, Lily, on the economy, and that's exactly still what we're living with today. Okay, someone go over Kosovo. I assume that's what you mean, real quick. Nice job, Lily. Ross Perot's famous quote: "Giant sucking sound of jobs going south to Mexico." There were some. Savings and loan crisis was the deregulation. So savings and loans essentially are banks, and they deregulated banks, so took away some of the control. And then I think there were 5 major ones that kind of cheated, bribed some senators. It was kind of a scandal. Those banks went bankrupt, and because now we guaranteed loans, the American government was on the hook for repaying those deposits. Remember FDIC from the New Deal? The American government was on the hook, so it was billions of dollars. Yeah. Sending troops, but we bombed them first to get them to stop. May, if that's how you pronounce your name. Abdul's INF. INF is the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Agreement between the Soviets and the U.S. That's kind of the first sign that things are going to work out between us and Gorbachev. Okay, we signed this treaty, limit, I believe, the range of nuclear weapons. SDI, you guys didn't talk about that. Star Wars. How are we going to? Reagan thought we could make nuclear war obsolete, and how can you make it obsolete if you just shoot their missiles out of the sky with lasers? Pew pew pew. Yes. Yes, good job, Joel. It was a crisis for Clinton. Into the funny answer is that we haven't. Baby boomers are retiring right now, and so that's costing more. I think the number 1 and 2 greatest expenses from the federal government right now today is Medicare and Social Security. So that's part of us going further in debt. Hurricane Katrina has significance because that's where, yeah, the Bush blame. I mean, it was a bad look by Bush. Bush was coming back from his ranch in Texas, and he asked a detour over New Orleans to kind of check it out, and it was terrible, and people were starving. I mean, there's all sorts of stories. I think some of them are lies, but or false. Of in the Silver Dome, like people are being murdered, and there's rapes happening, which is probably true, and the toilets are overflowing. And here's George Bush flying over Air Force One over the Superdome. It's just a really bad look. The Kanye West doesn't help because he says George Bush hates black people. I think, and Bush's fault is probably one, he didn't act fast enough, and two, the guy that he has in charge of FEMA really wasn't skilled in that area. I think he was a guy that donated a lot of money to the Bush campaign, so he got put in charge of FEMA for some reason. So, which is not a good place to have somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. That's terrible, Tanaka. Okay, Lily, I'm not sure what you're confused about. Because George Bush was in Air Force One flying above the Superdome. You should know that they had the government shutdown, so it was essentially a showdown between Clinton and the Republicans. And Clinton won, and the government shutdown got blamed on the Republicans. It's like the first, we've had that shutdown obviously a few times now. Grace's question: no, Wynn didn't really do anything. So the whole idea of the whip inflation now and just that would convince you is not enough. Somebody interested serious question about the two-tiered economy. We talked about that a few times, please. Sure. The answer is really big. It was going to be the worst, possibly worse since the Great Depression, maybe worse than the Great Depression because the banks were collapsing, and they allowed one bank to collapse, one investment bank to collapse. Other ones were collapsing, and potentially, like all of them, all the Wall Street banks might have collapsed, which would really have just literally destroyed the economy. Tiffany, fiscal crisis under Obama. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. I'm guessing that's the one. Okay, somebody answer the question about the two-tiered economy. So, Navleen's question: the Iran hostage crisis. First, after we're done here, you got to go Google or on YouTube look up opening scene Argo, ARGO. That'll give you a good sense of it. They had the Islamic Revolution. They wanted the Shah back. They wanted first he came to the U.S. for cancer treatment, then he dies, and they want his body back so they can, I don't know, probably defile it. And we refused to give it back because he's our ally. And then they stormed the embassy and they hold Americans hostage. This is kind of not the end of Carter's presidency, but certainly didn't help his presidency because he was unable to get them back. He looks weak. He tries a helicopter rescue. One crashes in the desert. That makes him look more weak. And then we finally get them released on Reagan's inauguration day. Shreya, that's the stimulus package. That's how Obama dealt with the recession. May's question about the government surplus. That's the debate about what should we do with all this extra money. And so Bush versus Gore, Bush said we should get it back through form of a tax cut because it's our money. We just overpaid. Gore said we should use it for Social Security, and because elections matter, Bush won, and we got it back in the tax cut. Okay, did nobody answer the two-tiered economy question for my person up there? Savings loan crisis. We deregulate. This is part of the deregulation during Reagan years. We deregulate. Savings and loans are essentially banks, and we deregulated banks. 5 of them cheat. I believe it was 5 cheat and bribe some senators. They go bankrupt, and we have to pay all the depositors back, right? Because all deposits are guaranteed ever since FDIC was created. Thank you, Lily, for answering that question. Yeah, Joel, I think Congress probably hated Clinton more than Clinton hated Congress, but okay, good question, Tiffany. So the one under Reagan, that was just a really continuation of the problems in the 1970s. So when he got elected, they still had economic recession, or they still had they had economic problems going on, inflation. The Federal Reserve raises the interest rates, that causes a recession, and then after that's over, that fixes inflation, then the economy takes off. Okay, that's not. So you think about raising interest rates, it's like getting vaccinated. It might make you sick for a little bit, but you're going to be better off in the long run. That's essentially what raising interest rates did during Reagan. The one under Obama was a housing crisis that led to a banking crisis, and the banks almost collapsed. Well, we're potentially going to collapse. That's where the stimulus package comes in. Okay, I hope that helps, Tiffany. Joel's answer, yes, because a lot of people felt like Clinton was. I mean, having an affair obviously is not ideal, but people thought he was being brought up on charges for political reasons, not because they you can kind of see today that all that morality stuff doesn't seem to matter as much. Okay, for all you people late to the or joining the call late, don't forget Kyoto Protocol. Okay. Good answer, Lily. And the U.S. had to pay back all those lost deposits. Abdul, you were right. It's under George H.W. Bush, but the roots of it are under Reagan and deregulation. Shreya, that was the WIN program is Ford's attempt to tame inflation. Remember, inflation is the big problem throughout the 70s. Bothered Nixon, bothered Ford, bothered Carter. So his plan was whip inflation now. Later gave rise to DJ Khaled. But that's a much larger question. Because I think she had political aspirations herself. So, obviously she did because she ran for president. So leaving her husband necessarily wouldn't help. Staying with her husband would make her look dedicated. I don't know. People have debated that. You read the 8x11, the tax revolt? It's the middle class tax revolt. They felt like they were oppressed too, just like blacks and women and other minorities. Their taxes kept going up because the property values of their homes kept going up because of inflation. So the more your home is worth, the more tax you have to pay, even though it's the exact same home. Okay. I'm not sure what OFC means. What does OFC mean? Gives her no help. The NSA with Obama, that's how they They swept up exactly. So they are looking for terrorists, right? So they suck up all your information, emails, texts, tweets, everything. And I think they got a giant data farm in Utah and maybe one other place. And they filter through all that, which is kind of like an illegal search, right? The government can't wiretap your phone without reason. And so the NSA doing this is kind of illegal, probably unconstitutional. Domestic policies of Obama, I think the big one, obviously, it's the stimulus package, so it got us out of the recession. Obama's other big piece is Obamacare, obviously, the healthcare reform. Okay, other stuff I don't think got as much play because when the book was finished, Obama wasn't quite done yet. So I don't know. He has Race to the Top to help fix education. I don't know. I mean, there's other stuff too, but I don't think it's as important for our uses today. Okay, Rashab, that is a very big question. We just covered the domestic policy. Foreign policy for Obama is fighting terrorism. So Guantanamo Bay, trying to end the Afghan war, trying to end the Iraqi war. It's Obama's big thing, and trying to keep Iran from developing nuclear weapons, and trying to get North Korea to stop making nuclear weapons, and reestablish relations with Cuba. But that's not in the book; it goes later. Oh, thank you. If it's, of course, why is it like OFC? Why not just like OC? Thank you. I feel young again, people. Okay, Chris, I know where your 4th hour's at. You better watch it. No, Sindhu, I speak in full sentences. Okay, now you guys are going to just start talking in abbreviations there. Tea Party Republicans. So Ansh's question, one of the things the Republicans use to beat up Obama, quote unquote, beat up Obama because he's spending so much money on the stimulus package, is the Tea Party. So Tea Party Republicans want to cut government spending. They want to balance the budget. You know, the whole argument, oh my God, the debt's so scary. And it is, but debt's so scary that we need a balanced budget. And Obama, a bad guy because he's spending $800 billion, like kind of out of context without the recession. Siri, I'm not sure if you're serious, but the George W. Bush presidency, people said actually his more ideological father was more Reagan than it was his own father. How about that for a little Star Wars father drama? Yeah, they're watching us and listening to our stuff, Tanapa. So be careful. Okay, Chris, I'm not sure why you're apologizing to Brendan. I'm the one you're insulted. Gridlock under Obama, because Obama, especially after the first 2 years, like it was all Democrats. Obama's in presidency, Congress is controlled by Democrats. That's when they got Obamacare passed. After that, the Republicans won control and they wouldn't pass any. Well, Obama had a hard time passing anything. And so that's where he did some stuff just by executive order. Oh, that's not good. Thank you, Lily. +1 for you. We're still developing the merch ceiling fan. That's a funny name. Yes, right. And their argument, the argument about from the Tea Party, again, it's too much money. But if one thing you notice now that the Republicans are in control, you don't hear a peep about like how much money we're spending with tax cuts or military or anything else. Okay, Lily, I'm not sure if that's real or not. Yeah, in fact, Tanapa, they actually caught the Republicans. I think after Obama was elected, they had a meeting and said they're going to do everything they can to make Obama like a one-term president. Okay, so making him a one-term president, don't let him pass anything, so that way he can't say that he was defective. Cindy's question about Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, again, he wanted to close it, but the problem is, where do you put these people? So they're either supposed to be put on trial or released. He didn't want to, they can't be put in prisons in this country because the Republicans opposed it. They said that's going to invite terrorist attacks because people are going to try to break their buddies out. Can't try them on court here because same thing. It's going to invite in terrorist attacks. Hard time sending back to other countries because some of them have been ruined. We've been calling them dangerous terrorists all this time. Like, what country is going to want to take those people back? He's able to finally he reduces the number drastically, but not everybody. In fact, I think there's still like 50 something people there, so it's still open. Obama did some things, but he did it by like executive order again. So like the whole dreamers, like the immigrant dreamers, that's Obama, but that's by executive order more so. Now, Blaine, somebody asked her a question about, or the question about glasnost and perestroika, please. Oh, serious, Saddam Hussein. He was in charge of Iraq when they invaded Kuwait, and George H.W. Bush went in and kicked Iraq out of Kuwait, but left him in power. And then that's when later George W. Bush invaded Iraq to look for weapons of mass destruction, and they toppled him and his government. Later found him in a hole, and he was executed by the Iraqis. Oh, Islamic fundamentalism. Okay, hold on. Tanapa, your question about political gridlock. Bush had it. I don't think it was quite as bad. They opposed the war, and they were trying to get the war stopped. But it wasn't quite as bad as Obama, I think. But I could be biased. Islamic fundamentalism is kind of the turn, probably really under Clinton, where terrorism gets used as a weapon. Some people like Osama bin Laden opposed the presence of the U.S. in the Middle East. U.S. is kind of seen as bullies in other places. And so it's kind of going back to the roots. It's funny, not funny. The two responses like to Western developments. There's a movie that talks about like the neocons, and so we kind of lost our way, and then we had to find bad guys. And luckily, once the Cold War is over, terrorism fills that void. And for the terrorists, as a way to react against the decadence of Western decadence, like the consumerism, the wastefulness, the superficial nature of ourselves, turn to Islamic fundamentalism. And so, of course, you are against things that America stands for, and that leads to a battle, many battles. Bella's question about our relationship with Iraq. We don't really have a relationship. They invaded Kuwait, and then the UN, led by the US, but the UN said they can go in and remove Iraq from Kuwait. That became the mandate. And we go in and we do it, in a very short amount of time. That's how we got our groove back after the Vietnam War. We kick Iraq's butt, kick them out of Kuwait. The question was, should George H.W. Bush remove Saddam Hussein at that time? We could have easily, but he doesn't, because the mission was to get them out of Kuwait, not to topple their government. Good answer, Sinhu. Thank you, Brendan. Yep, political and economic. Okay, apparently you guys all know glasnost and perestroika. What examples of terrorism? You should probably know the Beirut barracks bombings. Say that 3 times fast. Terrorism. You should know the Beirut barracks bombings. You should know 9/11. I think that's it. I don't know anything else on your terms. Domestic terrorism. You should know Timothy McVeigh and Oklahoma City bombing. Thank you, Tanapa. If you guys nominate me, I will choose Kanye West as my running mate. Okay, no, stop. I don't want any Kanye West jokes. Stop. Tanapa, do you mean the first Gulf War under George H.W. Bush? It died down because we won. And so actually to protect like the Kurds in northern Iraq, we had a no-fly zone for a long time. Lily, that would be quite the career track, right? Kirsten, do you mean SALT also? My class, I hear you laughing. No, we actually don't. Carter cancels SALT II as a result of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Brendan, that's one way of doing it, but that seems like the long road there. Okay, Redwana's question. Somalia is Clinton. Clinton tries to go in there because there's warlords that are running Somalia. And so we try to go in there to help the people, but they shoot down our helicopter, Black Hawk Down. It's a movie for you guys. Some of you guys can watch on over break. Black Hawk Down, and they drag the dead body of one of our pilots through the streets, and it's an embarrassment for America. Really embarrassing. Kenya was actually another terrorist attack. That is, they attacked the Kenyan embassy. That was under Clinton. Tiffany, probably, I think technically was under Carter, but that's more one that's, I think, I mean, it's under Carter, but it's more a sign of the times. Brennan's question about the Beirut bombing. We went in there, we sent troops to be peacekeeping troops in Beirut. They were having a civil war. And we were sitting in the airport barracks, and somebody rolled up in a truck bomb and blew off the front of the building, killed over 200 Marines, and then we left. I don't know if perestroika sounds like restructuring, but if that works for you, by all means, go with it. I guess Glasnost sounds like political. They both have an O in it. Tanapa, you know the answer is always C. Thanks, Tanapa. Yeah, actually, we're kind of light on the people. Usually, I think we're up in 50 or 60, but I think a lot of people probably either ready for break or have taken it or whatever else. Yeah, nothing. Vietnam, South Vietnam actually fell. We're out of Vietnam by that point, but Ford was president when it fell to the North Vietnam. Okay, so we're pretty clear that Ford doesn't have much of a foreign policy. He's not there very long, but he does trip a lot. Oh, that's funny. Really? Yeah, Cindy, we're actually out of South Vietnam by the time it fell. Somebody explain Somalia to Kelly. I think we've talked about it a few times now. Yeah, Lily, that's how some people are. It's okay. No, Lily, I think people come in and out, which is okay. Reaganomics series question. Reaganomics is essentially trickle down theory. It's similar to Mellon, the guy that was never married, in the 1920s. So you cut taxes for the rich, you cut taxes for corporations. They will take that money and they will invest it, create new businesses, create jobs, and so people don't need welfare because they will be able to work at those jobs. Good answer, Sinhu. Yeah, but the other thing about Somalia, again, we sent troops in. It was kind of embarrassing for us that the warlords were able to turn us away. Yep, he wasn't. Good question, Tiffany. He wasn't as popular in 1996. He's not really a factor in that one. Serious question. They both happened under Clinton. I think that's about it in terms of Kosovo and Somalia. You're welcome. Good luck tomorrow. Tanapa, I think I would just go over the terms. Rereading the textbook would be tough, I think. Tough the first time, even tougher the second time. Because No Child Left, yeah, it was actually co-sponsored by Edward Kennedy, a big-time Democrat. I mean, because they want to improve schools, and in particular when you talk about like inner cities where people graduation rates less than 50%, everybody wants to improve schools. It's a question of how. Okay, so remember there's C, but don't tell anybody. Abdul's question: the moral majority. It's part of the backbone of Reagan's support. And so they're evangelicals. Okay, religious folks that try to convert others. They're appalled by the women's rights movement, gay rights movement, the whole counterculture, abortion. Okay, so it's kind of like if you remember Nixon's silent majority, like they're against those things, but they just didn't say anything. That's why they're the silent majority. The moral majority feel the same way, but now they're active politically. Whoa, okay, if you got time to reread, go ahead. Shreya's question about Sunbelt. Sunbelt is people moving down to the south and down to the west. Still true today. So people are leaving. Michigan's been losing population since World War II, really, and maybe since the 50s. And they're moving to the south and the west. Tanapa, I think you mean flow right now. That's pretty funny. Yeah, Tanapa, that's tough. I don't know if I would reread, but whatever floats your boat, I guess. And it kind of doesn't work is an important question too. That's all right. It's never too late to find out about the origins of flow rider. Okay, that's good, Shreya. Yeah, that's you guys. I always look for like what you guys do to help because people always like, especially next year, and like, what should I do to study? Hey, Leilani's in the house. I feel like a review is slowing down. Do you guys have anything else? I mean, I'll stay on, but Kelly's question: why was NAFTA opposed? Because NAFTA is going to cost jobs. If you get rid of trade barriers like tariffs, then it's easier, especially with like the cargo ships. It's easier to make stuff somewhere else and bring it back in, right? Because there's no tax. So, who hated NAFTA in particular was the union workers, who are typically Democrats, and that's why they gave Clinton such a hard time. The vote for NAFTA in the Senate was actually 50 to 50. Al Gore had to cast the tie-breaking vote. Abdul, practice test for this test or practice test for the AP exam? Nothing for this test, really. I mean, questions in the back of the book. I thought I had some questions up on the online book, but maybe not. It's been a while since I've checked. Yes, Brennan. Standardized tests and standards. So every state had to create their standards, and they had to give a standardized test to measure. Tanapa, yes. Canada, U.S., Mexico. That's all right, GM. Can somebody try to explain Iran-Contra, and I can help clean up afterwards? Oh, why do people oppose No Child Left Behind? Because if you're rich, if you're wealthier, you think it slows you down because it's dumbing down the curriculum because you're used to do more stuff. If you're poor, you think it's unfair because you're expected to know all the stuff, and then of course you get an E or you get a failing grade or your school gets a failing grade, and it feels like a setup. So got it from both sides. I mean, there's more to that. We could talk after the exam. Catherine's question: we rejected the Kyoto Protocol because, and this is always the argument, anytime you try to fix global warming, like it's going to hurt your economy. And when you hurt your economy, you cost people jobs. So that's where, like Obama had limits on coal and use of coal, and then when President Trump comes in, he gets rid of that because he says that kills coal jobs. Okay, I'm not sure what 8-ball is. Good. Good answer, Kelly. And to finish off her answer, we got the money from selling weapons and replacement parts to Iran. That's why it's called the Iran-Contra Affair. So we sold illegally because Congress didn't want money to go to the Contras. So we went ahead and did it anyways. And we got the money by selling replacement parts to Iranian weapons. Abdul, we will give actually, I think right now we have scheduled 3 practice exams for the AP exam. Okay. I mean, if you want more, I'll give you another 1 or 2 if you want. We didn't give them, we sold it to Iran. Abdul, good suggestion by Lily. You can also buy a book, and usually they have there too. Okay. See you, Shreya. You good luck tomorrow on the test. Rashida, what caused the 1990 recession? That's a good question. I'm not sure what really caused it. I just know it hurt President Bush. That's funny, Tanapa. Why would the tax cuts cause a recession? Obama's presidency. That's a very broad question, then, right? You should probably know his domestic policy and his foreign policy. Janice's question: should we know a lot about the new business practices and technology? Nah, maybe a little bit. Sorry, that's not a good answer. Business practices and mergers. I mean, technology. I don't know. I feel like, well, you guys weren't quite alive yet. No. That's a good answer. Yeah, I mean, you just know people are moving out to the Sun Belt, so it gives more political power to the South. No, the recession in '81, Grace, is because of tight money supply by Federal Reserve. They raised interest rates. Denver's question: the populace, like what the populace? I don't know what time period you mean. Neocons during Reagan are the neoconservatives that like the Western tradition. They are virulently Okay. Catherine's question about care more. Why did people care about all of the scandals? They cared about it because they couldn't get them politically. Clinton was a master politician. So you think back when the old days, if you can't disagree with their policies or their ideas, you throw mud, right? So same thing here. If you can't kind of take down Clinton's balanced budget because you as a Republican wanted a balanced budget, then you look into his scandals because people are like, oh no, scandals, that's terrible. You can't have extramarital affairs, and not that that's a good thing, but obviously you can see like today, I think we've relaxed our standards about that. They liked Western ideals. They lived in the West. Yes, they're in America. Popular conservatives. I don't remember this. I know in Ignati's class earlier, people said they would do anything they needed to get elected. I think that's what they said about popular conservatives. I don't think popular conservatives are as. Wow, good answer, Harshita or Google. I can see that making sense. So we're coming off the Gulf War, so oil is oil prices I can see being higher. Okay, so 1990 oil shock. If you remember, we're coming off the Gulf War, right? So Saddam Hussein in Iraq had cornered the market on oil when they took over. Well, they didn't corner, but they dominated the market on oil with Kuwait. And because the war, and actually when they were leaving Kuwait, they would set oil fields on fire. So it disrupted the oil supply. So gasoline is more expensive. And so then the economy, I can see, just weaker as well. Naveen's question: Tim Mcveigh was the domestic terrorist. He was, guys, during the late 80s, early 90s. The terrorist groups in America were like domestic terrorists. So there were people that were anti-government, thought the government was coming to take your stuff, take your guns. And so there are actually people like in Michigan was a big hotspot for it. Michigan militia, they would like train in the forest on the weekends to like fight off the government when it came. So Timothy McVeigh took that a further step. He made a U-Haul truck bomb and bombed the front of the federal building, Oklahoma City. Killed over 100 people, including 44 children, I want to say. I think Mondale's attractive because I mean he's just a good Democrat. He had a female vice presidential candidate, Geraldine Ferraro, but essentially I don't think anybody stood a chance against. Reagan won every state but Minnesota. That was the state that Mondale was from. No, Lila, he literally bombed Oklahoma City. Well, Oklahoma City is a city in Oklahoma, but it's called Oklahoma City. Any of you basketball fans, OKC, right? Hey, Ancha's still here. No problem, Tiffany. Yeah, that's what we said. That's the same thing. So what does that look like? Again, left and right wing. So typically the left wing is big government. Think New Deal, think Great Society. Huge government programs, billions of dollars spent. Government's the answer. So if we have a problem, like, hey, have the government come with a solution. Global warming, have government do something about it. The right generally is like less government, cut government regulations, let capitalism solve it. So Clinton is somewhere in between. We don't have to have big government. In fact, one of his famous quotes, "The era of big government's over." So we can find a third way. And so some of the old liberals hated Clinton because he sounded like a conservative. Denver, he pardoned Nixon to help us get past this long national nightmare. Really, that's it. He gets criticized then because it looked like the corrupt bargain. But I think historians have vindicated him, said it's probably the right thing. No, hopefully, Tiffany, that makes sense. I mean, it's, I don't know, it depends how much into politics you are, but that's what it means. You do have SAQ. Be honest with Tampa, I can't remember. Maybe it's a photo passage. Sorry, I'm experimenting. I'm seeing if I can remove my own comments. Apparently, I can't. Evelyn, that's Reaganomics. And you're like, well, what's Reaganomics? Reaganomics is where you cut taxes on the rich and corporations in particular, so they will invest that money into creating new businesses, and then people can work there. So it all kind of fits together. We don't need welfare because if we cut taxes and new jobs are created, the people can go there and work instead of just giving them money. Honestly, Tanapa, I can't remember whether it is that. So I'm not playing coy. Okay, I don't know if there's a lag here. Nobody's asking questions. Yeah, I don't know if something's up, but yeah, I get no questions. So I don't know if you guys are satiated or not. Oh my gosh, all these. Okay, I have no idea you guys are talking about. Sagebrush Rebellion. Denver, yes, that's part of it. Well, it's two parts. They didn't want government, like paying the government to graze their cattle on government land, on public lands. They thought was unfair because it seems to be open and it shouldn't be the government's land. But then there's also people that didn't want government rules on development. Okay, I wouldn't call it Ignani Egg. Camp David Accords, I think somebody answered that, right? Good job, Tanapa. Egypt officially recognizes Israel, first Middle Eastern country to do so. That's why that's significant. Someone described Kyoto Protocol. Not 10 times, but we have talked about it. See if somebody can answer it. First Bush presidency domestically, no, not really. He's only one. Anytime there's a one-term president, it's tough. There's usually not much. Okay, Kyoto Protocol. Yeah, it was a treaty to address global warming. U.S. didn't sign it because we thought it would um, hurt the economy. Rashida, yes, there's the Tea Party under Obama. The Tea Party, it's the not far well, it's the far right of the Republicans. So they're Republicans, but they're more conservative than the regular Republicans. Okay, Lily, just easy on the comments for a second. Let Google catch up to you. Kelly, good answer on the Tea Party. Yeah, they're against Obama, but their stick was the debt. That we should have balanced budget. Um, some extremes said we should even get rid of the Federal Reserve. We should go back on the gold standard. Yeah, Denver, they wouldn't be liberal conservatives. They would be actually reactionary conservatives. They're further right. So the opposite of radicals is reactionary. Denver, not really. Why do I feel like the Tea Party? No, Tea Party is exactly that. In fact, if anything, the Tea Party has come to dominate the Republican Party. So it's not even just the Tea Party. So if you're a moderate Republican, you got challenged by Tea Partiers during the primary. Naveen, maybe towards the end. Oh, yeah, we have 14 minutes, roughly. Yes, because China's always, and our argument is if China's not going to sign it because they're like the number 2 polluter in the world, then why should we sign it? Oh, that's funny, GM. Hey, Jonathan citing. What was the most important thing? Reagan's inaugural address. I think this is the morning in America, like we're fresh start. So again, if Carter is kind of like the Eeyore of American presidents, and like, oh, woe is us, Malay speech, things are terrible. Reagan is, hey, it's morning in America. We got nothing to apologize for. You know, we're Americans, by golly, and we don't apologize for anything. Funny. Oh, I think it's funny, Leilani. Fiscal crisis. Denver, which president? I think there might have been a few. Uh, Literally no room for that here. Um, yeah, I don't know. The government shutdown is a political shutdown, so that's not that's not because of the economy. The government surplus with the balanced budget and the economy took off, and part of that was this was the internet boom, like websites. They get all sorts of crazy websites, so there's a lot of investment things. People said it might have been a bubble; it wasn't like real. But the government showdown was an attempt by the Republicans. I forgot what they were trying to get Clinton to do, but they wouldn't fund the government, and Clinton was able to blame it on the Republicans. So it became essentially like who has the better propaganda to convince the public that it's the other side's fault, and Clinton wins that. Clinton's a master politician. If you don't like him for anything else, I think people respect him for his political abilities. And so the government surplus came after the balanced budget things. He left office with project government surplus and projected government surplus. Denver, I don't think that's quite true. Those are two different things. Arshida, what was your question? Okay. Popularity was continuing, but like what you get in the 80s is like crack, and that hurts the like poor communities. Marijuana is still popular from the 60s, 70s. Why would they want to get rid of the Federal Reserve? Because the argument is the Federal Reserve makes money, like literally can create money. That's how they control the money supply. So they think that's not right. You know, it's the argument, the Hoover argument. Like if you don't have money, you shouldn't be spending money. But with the federal government, it's different because like you could not spend money and you can watch your country get destroyed and your economy get destroyed. And that's not a good thing. But they seem to want to stick to their principles on that. So, okay, and again, hey, Igniting folks, you guys will have to stop and say hello at some point, so I kind of put a face to the name. Denver, you should know what the Human Genome Project is. Okay, someone that was here answer Tiffany's question about Bosnia, please. I felt like we've talked about a few. If not, I can help answer it later. Yes, Napa, and remember, you can get it in Florida. Timothy McVeigh is sitting in the Supermax prison right now in Colorado. I forgot who he actually talks to, the Unabomber, who is another guy that used to mail out bombs to people. I think they have like 1 hour outside and they sit next to each other in a fence and they talk about stuff. Okay. Tanapa, I have no idea what you're talking about there. Did somebody answer Tiffany's question on Bosnia? Is McVeigh dead? I don't think he's dead. Oh, I get it now, Tanapa. Funny. Somebody answer Tiffany's question. Oh, hey, Google Timothy McVeigh, see if he's dead.
He died.
Died in 2001. Oh, very sad. Well, not sad. He must have died young. How old was he when he died? Look at you right there.
3 years old.
33? No. Really?
31.
That's crazy. Okay. Good answer by Denver. Yeah, and remember, NATO was the bomb led by the U.S., but NATO bombed them. Tanapa, yes, and yes, we intervened to help the genocide against the Muslims. Literally, that kind of stuff you don't need to know. Denver, I don't know what that means. Like he ate it in prison? Was he executed? Well, son of a biscuit. I didn't know he was executed. Look up Unabomber. UNA bomber. Yeah. Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Tiffany, under Clinton, we are the only superpower, right? Soviets had fallen apart by then. And so we're more human rights oriented. So we intervene there. We intervene in Somalia because people are starving and the warlords are stealing the food. So Denver, does that mean that they don't, like, people that are executed don't get last meal requests? Strange. Thank you, Tanapa. That's a question for a later day. Yeah, that's how you want to go out, Taco Bell. That was Somalia, Brendan. Black Hawk Down. They actually made a movie about it. It's supposed to be pretty good. I don't think I've ever seen it. No, it's Somalia. Iran hostage crash. They didn't drag anybody through the street. Oh, yikes, Denver. I get the point. I don't know. Oh, how terrible. Oh, an olive? Okay, I feel like we've lost our way here. Any other questions? We have 5 minutes left, kids. Carter was human rights oriented. Clinton, I think with Clinton, human rights is the wrong idea, but yeah, the right idea. We're the only superpower, so it's like anything. When things go wrong, you look to the big guy there. It's like, what are you going to do? And so the U.S. is trying to intervene around the world. Ansh, that was with Carter. That's a different helicopter crash, though. So I guess it depends on which helicopter crash you are talking about. Catherine's question, why the underclass? So you think about the changes in the economy as manufacturing jobs are moving away, those people that are in the city, now they're kind of stuck in the city, right? And so that's the underclass. And that's when we talk about a two-tiered economy. If you're uneducated and working at a manual labor job making minimum wage, how do you get out? Yeah. Tanapa, yes, particularly African Americans. Axis of evil is W. Yes, Anch, there's review in Mr. Ignati's class. Axis of evil is George W. Bush. It's Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. There's an axis of evil running through those 3 countries. Okay, here's a question for you. So, what helped Clinton get elected in 1996? Re-elected in 1996? Ding, ding, ding. Brendan wins the day. Now, being cool and young and hip is not going to get you reelected. Yeah. So, no, side, that is in 1992. The recession hurt Bush. Ignati kids, here's your tip. So, with Clinton, it's the economy, stupid. That's one of his advisors said. When the economy is good, you'll get reelected. When the economy is bad, you won't get reelected. And so George H.W. Bush, the economy was in recession. He didn't get reelected. He lost to Clinton. Clinton in 1996, the economy was good. He gets reelected. Okay, it's the economy, stupid. No, Lewinsky scandal doesn't help him get reelected. I hope you're kidding.
What's Waco?
Waco, Texas is they invaded this compound to rescue kids and caught on fire and killed some people. Yes, Leilani, that is exactly it. 1996 re-election. What are the Democrats? They won the presidency. What else did they win? Really, Tanapa. You'll have to bring it into play one day. No, government surplus happens afterwards. The economy is doing well, but he doesn't win because of government surplus. What are you talking about, Denver? We are in a cult, the A-Push cult. Oh, Jonathan, but probably true. Remember, JFK was pretty attractive. So was his wife and kids. Somebody answered the boss's question about the Camp David Accords. Okay, let's hope so, GM. Wait, quick. 1996 election, what happened? Or what did the Democrats win? Yes, Jonathan, the dog was pretty attractive too. No, Peter, the Democrats, I think they won control of the House. But the Senate, the Republicans kept control of the Senate. We got to design it, my man. So if any of you guys can design merch, please do.
What?
We're trying to sell merch, man. Oh my God. My son said you're the coolest dad ever. I'm like, thanks, kid.
Far from
The other one says I'd second that. Yeah, somebody answered the boss's question. What's the boss's question? Who's the boss? Okay, boss, okay, yeah, you got to say your real name, so I don't have to call you the boss all the time. The Camp David Accords, it is, they bring Egypt and Israel to Camp David. Egypt officially recognized Israel, first Middle Eastern country to do so. In exchange, they get some land back, and then Anwar Sadat goes back and gets assassinated. No, Joel goes by his real name. He wouldn't go by the boss. Okay, any last questions? About to sign off. It's 8:30, just about. Oh, somebody explained the Clinton third way. We've talked about it. Clinton third way, essentially, he's neither liberal nor Democrat. Not liberal or conservative. Okay, he finds a third way. You watch your mouth over there. So he's not liberal or conservative. Finds a third way: balanced budget, raise taxes on the rich, reform welfare, reform affirmative action. So, yep. Check the chat earlier. We did talk about third way a few times. So, also centrism is when you're neither left nor right. You're in the center. Yes, Lily. Everyone casually swears. Okay. Yep. You're welcome, everyone. Thanks, Peter. Try to make it back as much as possible. You guys have a great night and see you tomorrow. Good luck on the test.